The thing that really matters in a president is whether you're a change maker. If you agree that the test is, are people going to be better off and the young people have a brighter future? And Harry Truman once said that it's really hard to be a change maker when you're president. He'd even sign executive orders and nothing would happen. She is the best change maker I have ever known. And if I had never been married to Hillary, but I just known her, I'd be working just as hard for her, because I have never known anybody who could look at a problem and figure out what to do about it better. When we were in law school, everybody was dying to get out. I mean, come on, we've been to school forever. We were up to our ears in debt. Enough already. And back then, it was a big deal for a woman to have a law degree from a prestigious school. She took another year and worked at the hospital because back then, there were no protections in American law for children against severe child abuse and neglect if it happened in the home. None. So they came up with some guidelines, she and her colleagues, to figure out how to change the law and protect the family unit. And now every state in America, starting with the work those guidelines sparked, protects their kids against severe child abuse and neglect. She was making changes as a young woman. When we got out of school, she went to work for Marion Wright Edelman at the Children's Defense Fund for a very low wage when she could have had all these high-dollar jobs, and was knocking on the doors of poor people's houses in New Bedford, Massachusetts, to find out how come their kids were dropping out of school. Almost all of them were dropping out because they had minor physical and mental disabilities, and our schools had no provision then to take care of these kids. The buildings weren't handicapped accessible. There were hardly any teachers who could even teach a kid to read with a minor case of dyslexia. The work those young people did for the Children's Defense Fund was sent to Congress and led to the passage of the special education law that guarantees an equal and appropriate public education to all of our kids. That changed America for the better. And she was doing it as a young woman. In the Democratic primary in Arkansas, where Hillary has not lived in 15 years, she got 70% of the vote. And all the time they're saying, oh, this woman's from New York, why do you want to vote for her? 65 to 85 people from that state, a lot of them who couldn't afford the money to make the trip, have gone all over America campaigning for her. Some of them will be here in North Carolina before it's over in the next 2 weeks. And they've got this little brochure you ought to read if you see one, that they wrote. Look at the changes she made in our lives. The people in rural areas who had health care because she brought it there. The poor people in the Mississippi Delta without any education who were taught to be their children's first teachers, one of the most successful preschool programs in the country. A school system that she helped to shepherd the reforms of that was ruled one of the two most improved school systems in the country. She raised the money for America's first rural development bank to loan money to men and women who lost their jobs in factories in the 1980s where they couldn't get anybody else to give them a loan. That bank is still roaring. And in the latest poll in Arkansas, Senator McCain was running 16 points ahead of her opponent, and she was running 15 points ahead of Senator McCain. And that state has only voted for Democrats 3 times in 44 years. Twice was for me. They pretty well had to do that. Why are they for her? Because she changed their lives. There are farmers from rural New York. A lot of you don't know this, but you'd be amazed how much rural New York is like rural North Carolina. 40 of our 62 counties voted for President Bush over John Kerry. They're Republican counties. When Hillary ran for re-election, she got 60% of the vote in those counties. And these people in these counties are going all over the country saying, you know, you ought to think about voting for this woman. She is the only public official that ever actually did anything for us. And the other night I was in Hickory, North Carolina. You know where that is? I did 7 of these little stops like we're doing now. That was the 6th one. And when I finished, I got down off and I did what I'm about to do. I was going around here shaking hands. And I got to the last person. And the last person was a woman who grabbed me by the arm and she said, look at my daughter. Look at my daughter. I was kind of scared to look down. And I looked down as a perfectly normal teenage girl. And I said, tell me about it. She said, she's why I'm for Hillary for president. I said, what do you mean? She said, look, I know when you were president that she took the lead on all these family issues. The Children's Health Insurance Program, the biggest expansion of health care since Medicare. And the thing I care most about is adoptions. This woman had it down. She said, I know that she did this work and got Republicans and Democrats to support a radical overhaul of the adoption laws. I said, that's right. $5,000 tax credit for adopting a child with a disability. I said, you adopt a child from overseas, they become a citizen the minute they hit the ground here. But she said, the thing that matters most to me is that the changes she made double the rate of adoption of children out of foster care. So he said, and she looked at me, and this woman said, Hillary saved my daughter from a life in foster care and saved me from a life without my daughter. Now, you just have to decide whether this kind of stuff's important to you, but I am telling you, you will never find anybody that's done this more. Robert Kennedy Jr. introduced me at a rally for Hillary in North Carolina the other night, and he was just talking about how she was his neighbor, she was his friend. He couldn't believe all the mean things that were said about her. And then he joked, he said, remember, she had a fanatic Republican spend $40 million trying to destroy her. She's the only certified honest person who has ever run for president. Because if they could have gotten anything on her, they would have, and every charge they ever threw at her turned out to be false. I'm telling you, she's the best change maker you will ever find. Now, you can say you don't care. You can say it doesn't matter if you turn speeches into solutions and promise into reality, but I think it does. I once spoke on your behalf to 1 million people, 1 million in Ghana. And I was a pretty good speaker back then. And it was a rush. It was also good for America. It was good for America for them to know in Africa that we were pulling for them. But next time I went to Ghana, I was just Joe's citizen. And I went because the government wanted me to help them provide economic opportunity for poor people, and I was trying to help them with their AIDS programs and other things. So I'm leaving the country. I'm on the tarmac of the airport, and there is one woman, not 1 million, one, screaming at me, don't go, and she's waving something. So she comes up to me and she said, I'm one of 400 women that have jobs in our community for the first time. We never got a paycheck before. And as a result, all of our children are in school for the first time, not working. So we make shirts. And it's changed our lives forever. So here's your shirt. Now, I took that shirt home and I put it in an open shelf in my closet. Every morning, this morning when I got up, I look at that shirt. And it reminds me that that woman is not mad at America. She does not want her kid to grow up to fight in an African tribal war. She does not resent that we make more money than her because she believes that we want a shared future. That's what America and the world needs, shared prosperity, shared opportunities, shared responsibilities across all racial and religious and gender and age lines. And the point I wish to make here is this. I love speaking to that 1 million people. But the woman with her shirt matters more. And that's why North Carolina should support Hillary for president. Thank you, and God bless you.